I don't normally do worker placement games. Okay, perhaps Robinson Crusoe was worker placement. This one is interesting enough to give it a bit of a shout out. The game is called Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. As per usual, I'm not going to do a review, but I do want to give you just a little bit of a vision of how the game flows and how the game plays. So I'm going to set up quickly a 3-player game. This is for 2 to 6. It's about an hour long. I'm not going to do a whole series on this. I'll just do this little single video just to run you through a couple of turns. The rules, when I first read them, looked a little bit daunting, but once you start playing and have had a few games, you can see it's actually quite straightforward, and then you start to think about strategy and so on. So, you know, you do have to try and get into this. Don't expect to be playing your first game and understanding how to best play this game. Let me show you, and then we'll go from there. There's a few videos already on the game and the Kickstarter version. This one came from Kickstarter, but this is a retail copy I've got here, so the components are slightly different. So we have some cardboard tokens and wooden tokens where the Kickstarter had perhaps a few upgraded tokens. The other thing is that the resources, there's fewer of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 12 here. I think the Kickstarter had 18. The way I recommend bagging everything up is by colour. There's 6 players, each of a different colour. So that's all right, purple. So you get one of these boards, you get a set of 4 dice and a couple of tokens and some stars, 10 stars. Right, so let's put out 3 players and set up a 3-player game to show you. This is the Euphoria board. There's basically 4 areas on here. There's the Euphorian area here, the Wastelander territory, the Subterran territory, and up in the sky here, the Icarite territory. Each one of these 3 areas down here on the ground have mines. 1, 2, 3. It's quite a busy board. It's hard to pick out all the detail, but once you understand where everything is, here, 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 then it's not so bad. We've got these 3 miners. We're going to place these at the start of each of the mine shafts. So the idea is that each one of these territories produces a different type of commodity, and in order to get the other types of commodities, you can dig down through this mine. So for example, the Euphorians here, they generate energy, this yellow one, and if they dig down through here, they can go and get themselves water. And in each of the players, they have an allegiance to each of these 4 different territories. We start them down here on the allegiance track at the 0 spot, these starts here. And for these 3 mines also, until they've dug these mines, these rewards are not available. You know, in worker placement games, these are the places where you can place your workers. Right? You place these in these grey boxes, like here, 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 to make things happen. So for now, these areas are blocked off. Also for setup, depending on the number of players, there's 4 stars in each territory, and each of these stars has 6 spots. If we're playing 3-player, we've got to blank some of these off until there's only 3 spots available. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Each player has 10 stars. The aim of the game is to get rid of those 10 stars. Okay? There's 4 different ways you can get rid of stars. One way is to place them in these large territory stars here. And you do that by placing workers in these areas. You place a worker here, for example, and you gain some allegiance to the Wastelanders, and you get to place a star. And you place a star in here. But there's only 3 spots. Right, there's 3 players, 3 spots. One player could fill out 3 of these, 2 of these, 1 of these, or none of these. So it's a race. Okay. This one is a market. The markets are drawn randomly. There's 6, is there? Yeah. So we'll put these in. And these are the costs here to build markets. So you're going to be placing workers here. All right. And these things are resources. We've got stone and clay. So you're going to need resources to build markets, which you then open up those markets to allow you to place stars. You've also got these markets here, which are already built. And these cost 3 artifact cards and a worker. You get to place a star and you gain some allegiance. Right, so that's one way to get a star. This is the second way to place a star. But also, if you build a market, if you're one of the person who's contributed some of these resources to building a market, you get to place a star on that market. You can only have 1 on these. And there's a couple more ways. Alright, as this allegiance track gets pushed up, you notice there's a star at the end. Anyone who has a recruit of that allegiance will gain a star. How do you get recruits? Well, they're just dealt to you at the beginning of the game. So this is this big stack of recruits. Each player gets dealt 4 of these. You get to choose 2. Let's have a look at these. Okay, so we've got one green one. He's an Icarite. Okay, we've got one blue one here. He's a Subterran. We have 2 Wastelanders. Now the idea for the blue player here is to choose 2 of these. How do they decide? Well, each one of these recruits has different abilities. One of them is going to be your active recruit, he's face up, and one is going to be an inactive recruit, and he's going to get activated at different stages of the game as it goes. There's a spot here. If you dig this tunnel, once the miner gets to this point, then the inactive recruit flips over and becomes active. Now, as long as these recruits are active, they've got an allegiance, and they're earning your rewards for being of that allegiance as this track goes up. Okay, we'll see that as we play the game. For the sake of the game, I've just chosen 3 different active recruits of different allegiances, but like I say, everyone could ultimately choose the same. But the idea is that you kind of pick one and then everyone reveals them simultaneously, so you don't know what other players are going to pick until you've decided. And then you've got a couple of tokens here that are going to go off to the board. One represents your recruit's knowledge, or your worker's knowledge rather, and one represents your worker's morale. The dice, these are your workers. I'm going to place these tokens up here on the top left on these tracks. Morale represents your hand size. Your hand is made up of artifact cards. I'll show you those as we get going. Your knowledge starts here at 3. Now what you want is you want happy workers, but dumb workers. Happy and dumb workers is what you're after in order to maintain a happy and euphoric dystopia. So remember the aim. Get rid of stars, okay? 10 stars. But you're going to need resources to do that. So we're going to have to put some resources and commodities out on the board. These are the commodities. So we've got water. This comes from here. We've got food. This comes from the farm. Over here in the Wastelander territory. We've got energy, that's going to come from the generator over here in the Euphoria territory. And we've got something called bliss. And this comes from the cloud mine up here in Icarite territory. Anything in a square grey box is a cost, anything in a white circle is a reward. Okay, so why would you want to build tunnels? Well, it gives you ways of getting these resources. For example, the Wastelander tunnel gives you clay or artifacts. And why do you need those resources? Well, you need those to build markets, and building markets is the way to get your stars on markets. Why do you need artifacts? Artifacts is the way to get workers here and put stars in these territories, these star territories over here. There's one final way to get rid of your stars, and that is using these dilemma cards. At the beginning of the game, every player gets dealt one of these, and there's 6 in total, gets dealt one of these, and it acts as kind of a player aid as well. But on the reverse of these, each of these is an ethical dilemma. You get to choose, in this example, is either fight the oppressor or save the oppressor. For the green player, they had publish an expose or publish propaganda. And there's either one of these, there's a choice, and you can make this choice once per game. Okay, flip the card over and make the choice. You can either draw 2 recruits and keep one, okay, so you can get more of these, or place a star on this card, right, to get rid of one of your stars. So that's the final way to get rid of your victory point stars. Each player begins with just 2 workers, so I'm going to get rid of 2 dice from each player. Determine first player by rolling the dice. Highest goes first, so we'll give red the first turn. And the advice is, you've got your starting recruit. So everyone begins the game equal. The only thing that's different amongst them is which recruit they've got. So let's have a look at the red player, Josiah the Hacker. When you place a worker on the generator, farm or cloud mine, all other players with workers there gain a piece of knowledge, and you gain some morale. Now remember, morale is happiness. Happiness is good. knowledge is bad. We want dumb workers. So this is a positive effect for you. Everybody else's knowledge goes up, and you gain some morale. Okay, so placing workers on the generator farm or cloud mine is a good place to perhaps begin with our first worker, given that's the only edge we've got. So here's our 2 workers. Well, why are they dice? What do the numbers mean? Well, we've got to roll these. Okay, so we roll them. We've got a 6 and a 3. And they have to stay that way. Now let's say we want to place one of these workers in the cloud mine. That's a good place to start. We've got a 6 and a 3. These grey boxes are where we place our workers. If we place a 6 here, we look at the cloud mine. It says if you've got a worker value between 1 and 4, then you get a piece of bliss, and the allegiance track for the Icarus goes up 1. Between 5 and 8, you get some bliss and you lose 1 knowledge. Okay, so I've got to decide which one of those 2 I would prefer. Now as it goes, the allegiance track going up for the Icarus is only going to help the blue player. Remember, their recruit is a green one. Mine is a blue one, the Subterrans. So perhaps placing the 3 here is not so good, but placing the 6 here is better for me. So let's do that. We place a 6 here, we get 1 piece of bliss, and we lose a piece of knowledge. Losing knowledge is good, remember? I'll tell you why once we get there. Alright, so we grab a piece of bliss, and we lose some knowledge. Remember, because of Josiah the hacker, when I place a worker on the generator farm or cloud mine, all of the players' workers there gain knowledge. There are no other workers there, but I gain 1 morale as well. Okay, so my morale will go up. Morale is my hand size, remember? This is artifacts. Okay, so there's things like books. I've got some balloons, a scruffy old teddy bear, some broken glasses. These are things that you can dig out of the mines. Alright, so at most someone can have 1 card in their hand, but you want to push your knowledge up, because if you want to place workers here on these markets here, remember you're trying to get rid of all your stars. You need 3 artifacts. Well, I'm not going to be able to get 3 artifacts until I can push my morale up. And that's the red player's turn done. On your turn, you can either place a worker, or, and what we'll see later is, once you've only got 2 workers, what happens when you run out of workers? You've placed them both. Well, then on your turn, you can retrieve workers. Alright, so next turn, red will have a choice. You can either retrieve the 6, or you can place the 3. For now, though, it's the green player's turn. So let's initialise our workers first off. We've got a 6 and a 4. Let's grab the 4 and place it here in the generator. And a 4 is going to give us 1 energy and push the allegiance track up 1. Okay. Alright, so we push this up into this spot here. Now it's blue player's turn. And 1 and a 3. Oops. And they have Lee the Gossip. Lee says, when you bump another player's worker, you may lose 1 morale to make that player gain a little bit of knowledge. If you do, gain, and this symbol here means any one of the 4 commodities. Now we've heard the term bump a couple of times already. What does it mean? Well, red's put a worker in this big grey box. Green has put a worker in that big grey box. These big grey boxes, they can accommodate any number of workers. These small grey boxes, they can only accommodate 1 worker. So if green was here, what blue could do is bump them off. Okay, that's what bumping is. We'll get to see that when it happens. For now, though, I think it might be good for us to start working on resources. These are those we have available to us, come from these tunnels, remember? So we've got gold here. We have clay in the Wastelander tunnel. And finally, we have stone in the Subterran tunnel. If we want gold, we need electricity to tunnel here. So let's go and get some electricity. Right, let's take our 1 blue die and we'll place it here on the generator alongside greens. Now our value is 1, but what you do with this generator is, and you notice they don't just go up to 6, they go 9 and above. You add the sum of all dice, whether they're your dice or anybody else's. So this is a 5 total, and that means we're going in this column to 5 to 8, right? The total is 5. And that means blue's going to gain 1 piece of energy and lose some knowledge. Okay, so that's blue done. Go back to red now, and actually this sky lounge is quite nice. So we'll place another worker here. So that totals 9. That means we get 2 bliss, but we do get a little bit of knowledge as well. But that's alright, it only goes back where it was to begin with. And we mustn't forget this either. When you place a worker on the cloud mine, all other players with workers there gain knowledge and you gain 1 morale. So that was an easy way for us to get up to 3 morale. Now for green, let's show you how this tunnelling works. So I'm going to grab my worker and a piece of energy, and we'll go over to this Euphorian tunnel here. So we've paid the cost, we've placed a worker down. Now we can take a piece of gold or an artifact card. So why don't we grab a piece of gold. The other thing is, every time you place a worker in a tunnel, you move this little tunneler guy 1 spot down track. Blue now. Well, I think we'll go and grab this extra energy that we can get from here. So let's take our number 3 die, place it here. Now we've got a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We gain 1 piece of electricity and we lose 1 knowledge. Okay, no worries. Back to red. Red has got no workers. Now on your turn you can place a worker, you can retrieve 1 or more workers, or you can activate your dilemma, your ethical dilemma. The red's got a choice now. They can retrieve 1 or both of these. Let's retrieve both. Okay, but there's a cost associated with this, and I'll show you where. It's down here in the retrieve any or all workers box. It says, and this blue line represents a choice, we can either pay, remember, grey boxes, the costs, 1 food or 1 bliss and gain 2 morale, or we can pay nothing and we lose 1 morale. So let's pay nothing, we'll lose 1 morale, we get to take our 2 dice back. Okay, so this goes back from 3 to 2. Now when we take the dice back, whether you take 1 or all or whatever, you re-roll them. Okay, we've got 6 and a 4. Every time you re-roll after retrieving your dice, you have to do a knowledge check against the dice you've re-rolled. I re-rolled both, so I sum their values. The values are 10. I look over at the knowledge track and I can see that my knowledge is +3. So I take my 10 and I +3. That gives me 13. If my knowledge is greater than or equal to 16, then I lose a worker. I would lose 1 of those dice. Okay, so that's what the knowledge is about. That's why you want these things low down. And you can see that the more workers you get, the more chance you have of getting a roll of 16 or more. Imagine you had 3 workers and you retrieve them all at once. Okay, that's it. Green's turn. Let's have green retrieve both their workers as well. They've got knowledge of +3 also, so we re-roll. We get 2 4s, that's 8, +3, that's 11, that's not higher than 16, we keep our 2 4s. And the good news is we've just rolled a double. Anytime you place a worker, if you've got another worker in your hand with the same number, you can immediately place that worker as well. Now green's going to choose to pay no cost as well for retrieving their workers, and that's fine because they're already at 1 and you can't bump down to 0, so you just stay at 1. But for now that's going to have to wait because it is the blue player's turn, and I think they'll also retrieve their 2 dice, so we'll give them a roll. We've got 5 and 5. They're right down here on the knowledge track, it's a 1. So like green they rolled doubles, and like green They're currently on 1 morale, so they're going to pay 0 cost to retrieve their 2 workers. Okay, back to red, and they've got a 6 and a 4. We're going to use the 4 dice, that's important, and we're going to put it in the aquifer down here. Remember, we've got a subterran, or the red player's got a subterran recruit. So they're going to gain 1 piece of water, and the subterran recruit, because it's 4, the allegiance track's going to move up 1. Okay, so this goes on. We're heading down this track. Green now, and I think we will, we've got 2 4s, haven't we? So I think we'll place 1 4 here on the generator. That's going to give us a piece of energy rather, and move the allegiance track for the Euphorians. Up it goes. Now it's hit a special spot here. This is called Tier 1. What that means is, as soon as we're in here, every time anyone with a recruit whose allegiance is with, in this case, the Euphorians, and we go to the generator, we get an extra piece of energy. This is Tier 2, and this refers to the tunnel. Remember, when you go tunneling, you can take either this resource or an artifact card. Once you hit Tier 2 here, that means you can actually take both. The third tier, Tier 3, means you get to flip a recruit who is allegiance is with this faction, and then finally, if we hit the end point of the allegiance track, then we get to place one of our stars on any of our recruits with that allegiance. So to remind us of this fact, we've got this little token here which we can place on the generator, and that just gives you a little reminder that every time you come here you're going to get that extra resource. Okay, so that was green placing his worker, but remember, they threw doubles. We just played a 4. If we've got another 4, we can play it. If we had 3 4s or 4 4s, we could keep playing them, alright? So if you play a worker and you've got another worker in your hand of the same number, you get to place it. So what I'd like to do is place another worker here, and that's 8 this time. So that's 1 energy plus the bonus because I've got a recruit with the Euphorian allegiance, and I lose 1 knowledge. So knowledge goes down, gain 2 pieces of energy, and it's the blue player's turn. Okay, let's get things moving a little bit, and probably just ditch strategy a little bit and just think about showing you some of these mechanics. Let's have blue go and grab some artifacts and show you what these look like. So we're going to take a 5, and the only way I'm going to get artifacts is through one of these tunnels, because you dig for them. It's going to cost blue energy. So I'll take one of his energies, which he has. Of course, this bumps up the miner, and we take some gold or an artifact. Let's grab an artifact. So draw 1 card. And what's this? It looks like a battered old board game. Okay. This goes to blue's hand. Now, we rolled doubles, so I've got another 5. I could, because I've got more energy, I could bump myself off here and do it again. The problem is that because my morale is only 1, that means I can only hold 1 artifact at a time. Okay, so we're not going to do that. What we really want to do is try and push our morale up if we can. Now, unless we've got any recruit specials, the only way we can do that is through retrieving our workers and giving them some food or bliss, or activating them in this worker activation tank. So let's go in the aquifer. That's 5 plus 4, that's 9. That's 2 water, and we gain a little bit of knowledge. That's the downside. Okay, knowledge goes up. Red player's turn. Now, red's got a nice little stack of commodities, so they can go use the breeze bar or the sky lounge. So let's do that. Let's use our worker, and I think we will use... Let's go to the sky lounge. So these Icarite markets are pretty good, but we've got to pay some costs. That's okay, we've got enough stuff here. Let's grab a piece of bliss and some water, because remember it's going to cost 1 of those and 1 of the yellow, orange or blues. Okay, so that's energy, food or water. And then we take the rewards. So we move the allegiance track up and we get any 2 resources. Pretty neat, huh? So that's the allegiance track off for the Icarites. And then let's think about what resources we want. Let's grab a couple of pieces of clay. Seems good. Okay. Okay, now hopefully you're starting to get a good feel for the flow of the game. So let's try and mix things up a little bit and advance things on. Let's show you what happens when, well, let's say red gets a couple of bits of clay in here. Let's say green had actually put their gold here. So now we've completed this market. What happens now is that we flip this market. It shuffles to the left. These go back to the player, so we roll them. We do a knowledge check. Okay, everything good so far. Red get their dice back and green get theirs. Now the good thing is that they don't have to pay any costs because they've been bumped off. All right, every time something's bumped off, you don't have to worry about these costs because you're not retrieving per se. Okay. Now this new market's opened up, and every player who contributed towards building this market, so that was red and green, they get to place a star here. So green places a star, red places a star. Okay, they're on their way towards a victory. Blue hasn't placed any stars here. Any player who didn't place a worker here, so they don't have a star here, it says every time you roll a 2, you lose any one commodity or any one resource. Okay, so that's important. That's a bad thing for blue. But blue can do something about that. So it's blue to play. Let's say his morale was up there at 2, and they've managed to acquire another couple of resources. Let's say it was up there at 3. They've managed to acquire another couple of artifacts. Sorry. Okay, so they've got 2 old board games and 1 old glasses. Now what we can do is we could use the Arc of Fractured Memories. Let's grab blue's worker and a star because we're going to need that. Now blue with 3 artifact cards, and this is where artifact cards come in. You can place a worker here, pay the cost, 3 cards, and then they get to place a star. Now normally that star would go over here, right, and they'd take up one of these spots. But the alternative is, if you use this, you could in fact place a star here instead. So you can cancel this penalty by using this market and placing a star here or here. Okay, so let's say blue places one over here. It doesn't matter as it goes. But the other thing is that you may say, well, you know, these artifacts, why have they got a front side? It doesn't mean anything. Well, it doesn't mean anything primarily, but there's a little bonus. Every time you have to pay 3 card cost, 3 artifact cost, if you've got a pair, like here we've got a pair of old board games, you could, if you wish, use that pair to represent 3, right? So any pair is as good as 3 of anything, all right? So in this instance, blue could just play the 2 card cost, put this one back in his pocket, and get a star down. Got it? And this goes to a discard pile. And of course we take the other benefit, which is wastelands going up on the allegiance track. Okay, so this is what this market's for. Now we've opened up this new market. What this says is, and we've got some new costs. In this market, we've got new ways to place stars down. So if you haven't got lots of artifacts, but let's say blue retrieves his die, okay, he's got a glasses card already. But what that means is he can pay one of his commodities, any one will do. He can pay the glasses, which he's got, place his worker down, whatever value it was, and then he's got another star. So you can see how that pair was really important for blue. So that's the basis of this game, and it can throw up some real interesting combos, particularly when you have different allegiances. So once this miner gets down here, or once one of these things get to here, these can get flipped. Okay, so then the blue player has got an allegiance with not just the Icarites, but with the Wastelanders as well. So they can then start getting the benefits. Likewise, when this worker gets to the end here, we remove this marker. Right, so any player then with allegiance to the Subterrans, they can start placing workers here. and then you're getting 3 food for your worker. So there's a lot of balancing going on here. Lots of, you know, do I do this, do I do that? Being mindful of your specials. And remember, these are the things that give you the edge, all right? Your recruits. Otherwise, you're all equal. It's your recruits and which territory you have allegiance with. So you've got to find ways to kind of trigger these specials to give you that edge. Obviously, rolling doubles is going to help you, or triples, or when you start getting more workers. And you're racing to get your stars out, balancing your morale against your knowledge and paying these costs. Are these commodities more important to you than your hand size, which is what morale represents? You know, managing your hand of these artifacts that you're digging through these tunnels. For me, I think this brings something new to the worker placement genre, this idea of bumping. You know, you're not blocking each other off. Other players can bump you off, or you can even bump yourself off. And it's an alternative way to retrieving workers. Remember, retrieving workers costs you a turn. So if you want to use the same spot as somebody else, you can, but you're saving them the cost of retrieving. So that's the game. I hope you've enjoyed this brief look, and it's given you enough to see if this is a good fit for you. Euphoria, build a better dystopia.